So here we are tonight for SAT reading and overcoming some common traps. I did want to mention for you guys at the top that we have a raffle at the end of class. So we are raffling off a free mock test review for you guys so that you can have a totally free review session over a full mock test, which would be super helpful. Um, as we get kicked off too, I feel like I wanted to give you guys some opening thoughts for a sort of mindset and a framework for SAT reading and how the traps are so unique and particular. And I don't know if you guys have done any prep for the ACT, but I do like making a healthy comparison between ACT and SAT that helps you guys study more for the SAT. And that is that the ACT is fundamentally, it is a more honest exam. That when they say they're testing reading comprehension, they often are just testing your ability to locate certain details and connect that detail to a concept. And so, in a fundamental way, it is absolutely more about basic, straightforward reading comp, whereas the SAT is much more complex. And I love teaching SAT reading. I think it's a little more enjoyable for me because there is a lot of logic games happening, which are more fun and less, it's a little less interesting when you're just kind of skimming for a detail and connecting that to a concept. Um, while I have the luxury of calling that fun, you guys do not, because I know that this is A, not fun, B, stressful, and that there's a lot riding on it, as far as our future goes. So it's important that we learn these strategies that combat the very strategic moves that the test writers use on the SAT. I always tell you guys too, as we're studying and as we go through class tonight, I teach college classes too. And if I gave any form of SAT to one of my colleagues, they might be brilliant at reading and writing in something like 18th century British lit, but they would probably get a few questions wrong on SAT reading. Maybe not a lot because they're obviously great readers, but I really do think they'd probably average around 2 to 4 wrong per set. Reason being is that those top 5 hardest questions that I always call the evil 5, they typically have a flavor and a trap that is very unique to SAT reading. And I can give you guys a simple example of this. So the distinction between using a very small word like any, and any is a kind of negation cue. There weren't any bottles of water in the refrigerator. Most people don't notice something so small like the word any, and it takes the answer to what I call a zero answer. That at the very literal level, that means we know that it is factually indisputable, that it's a total zero. Hold on one second, guys. Let me check my chat. I think somebody just chatted with me. Yeah, I am sharing. Yeah. Um, and so this is one example I want to show you guys quickly that goes with one of the hardest um, tips and tricks that I really want to cover tonight. And it goes with that idea that there aren't any bottles of water in the refrigerator. It sounds really simple. It is simple, but let's look at question 51. And what I am pitching to you guys with this particular question is not a lesson based off of question type. You'll see that in a lot of thinking about how to master the SAT. There's a lot of sort of focus on question types and how to tackle those. And we do those too at 70DU, and I focus on those in my own classes. But the thing I'm going to coach you into now is a logical issue, and it's much harder. And that's why I think it's important to sort of prime you guys for this particular issue. And it transcends question type. And so this logical exercise we're going to do, it's not attached to nearly means questions. This comes up in a wide variety of questions. So looking at 51, as used in line 53, discount most nearly means. Let's go up and look at line 53. I'll read the sentence for you guys. It's right here. I marked it off right there. I'm marking in the margin. Despite these revelations that discount her anthropological originality, Lucy captured the public's imagination It's the most interesting hominid fossil ever found, certainly in 1974, and possibly even now. You guys will notice too that it's frequent on nearly means that they intentionally give you guys a very long sentence. One core technique that is question specific to nearly means is that I always want you guys to map grammar. That no matter how smart any of us in the room are, I still humble myself and do this on nearly means that. And when I say map the grammar, you want to isolate the fundamental grammatical subject, verb, direct object in the sentence and strip away everything else out of the sentence. When they give you 5-line sentences and they're asking about one word, they are often intentionally trying to cloud your judgment with all of the other language that is in the sentence. And so you kind of need to isolate. So in this case, when we map the grammar, we've got revelations discount originality. We can even take out the adjective anthropological and just keep it as revelations discount originality. Revelations discount originality. Revelations discount originality. In the Zoom chat, take a guess at 51. What do you guys think what's the best replacement for revelations discount originality? Take a shot. What do you think? What do we think? I'm curious because we have a good group tonight. We've got 55. I love seeing what the group mind comes up with. It's helpful for you guys too to see exactly what the struggle is, what the trap is, the trap answer. Let's all ring in. Let's get as many people. What's the answer, do you think, to 51? Oh yeah, for sure, Alden. Let me scroll back up for Alden. Before I scroll back up, I had to pause it to see the chat. Oh boy. Yep. This is why I wanted to start class with this. We're all over the place. Let me resume my share. Revelations discount originality. That's the core sentence foundation right there. So the goal is to shrink, simplify the syntax, and then that way it helps us isolate which word. I think only one person got this right. Revelations discount originality. And then let me scroll back down. Let's get some more people in here answering 51. We only had about, I think, 7 or maybe 10 people. Henry says, oops. I'm counting. I think Alden, you got it. The traps are A and C. You guys are A-ish and C-ish. As a group, they beat you. I feel like the evil test writers, they got us. The answer is D, disprove. And I tell you what, guys, I always say this when I teach SAT reading. I love to teach SAT reading because I love to sort of hate the College Board with you guys, that they have a lot of resources and they have some really brilliant people working for them. And we need strategies to fight this fight because they definitely have an extensive team. I would imagine they have learning and memory people on their team. You can kind of see once you study the test for long enough, the way they exploit the way memory actually operates. And so the team beat us, they checkmated us. We need disprove. This is not really a vocabulary question, right? You guys know what these words mean. Overlook, disregard, disprove. This is not in any way a vocabulary question. This is a logic puzzle. And the reason we have to pick disprove is because this is a zero situation. And I'm going to introduce this logical heuristic for you guys. It's like computer language, you know, when programming and such, there's 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. I want you guys to download into your brains tonight the idea that any answer anywhere on SAT reading can be a 0 answer, a 1 answer, or the infinite space in between a 0 and a 1, which is a fundamental gray area. The reason we need disprove, which if you say something is disproven, that theory is disproven, that theory has no accuracy, no merit, no scientific utility. And so it's a zero answer precisely because originality as a word is a all or nothing condition. You are either the original or you are not. And for everybody who picked minimize, you cannot minimize an absolute condition. You can't say you sort of won the gold medal. It's like you either win a gold medal or you lose it. And so you are either the original, the first, or you are not the original and not the first. And so minimize and disprove, they're playing a logic game of chess with you guys. And so if you don't think of it in that way, minimize sounds fine. It does not sound particularly bad, but from a logical standpoint, this is very much incorrect. And so I really think the square off between C and D is that C is in that infinite gray space in between the 0 and the 1, and disprove is a solid 0. You will see this and this kind of condition all over the exam. It's ever present, and it also, I was working with someone last year who was cruising in on a perfect score, really bright guy, and really fun to work with. And he, on one of his last real college board exams, he got one wrong. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, Andrew, I was like, this was the one. I was like, we talk about this all the time, that this is the boss level moment when you employ your 0-1 thinking. And he was really angry about this question. And I can narrate it for you guys because you need to hear this, that it was a science-based passage, but the correct answer was a logic-based answer like this. And it used the English idiom, have your cake and eat it too. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that before, but it's an English idiom used to describe two mutually exclusive conditions. And most people do not gloss have the correct way. Have, in this case of the idiom, have your cake, means keep your cake. So on the right hand, we have keep your cake as in hold on to it, and then have your cake and eat it too. So we've got keeping cake, eating cake. You can't do both of these things at once. And the test writers actually use that idiom to ask about a kind of logic that was used in a science passage. And he just thought that sounded so strange. He was like, why would they use an idiom about cake eating in a science passage? And I said, because that idiom is the perfect, like, linguistic manifestation of this logic game that they play throughout the entire exam. Is understanding that those two are mutually exclusive is a hard thing to glean from the idiomatic language. And so disprove is an example of an exclusive condition, and originality is an exclusive condition. So when you guys leave tonight, if you remember anything, remember 0-1 thinking and the infinite space in between. That's critical. That's the first thing I want to cover tonight. We're gonna see it again. I'm actually gonna hop over here. We're going to look through a very difficult Karl Marx passage that is way above your reading level. And this is borderline unfair because this is more, I didn't read Marx a lot until my PhD program. And to be honest, I hated every minute of it because Karl Marx is not, he's a towering figure as far as a thinker in philosophy, but his writing is very tortured syntax. And so, of course, they picked this for you guys because the tortured syntax, it's 1851, so it's dated language. This is a challenge. Like, these are always the worst for you guys. And so we're going to spend some quality time looking at this passage. I wanted to scroll quickly to see if I could just spot one of these all or nothing conditions that you just see all over the place. And they hide often in words. Like, oh, look, here we go. This 0-1 situation. Look at 40. Look at 40A, sole cause. They're playing a logic game that they're creating a contingency and an absolute condition just through the word sole, S-O-L-E, that this is the only cause. And so that answer for 40A just got extremely risky. And so this is something that we need to pay attention to. Most people, when they try to study for SAT reading, and when you guys are organically doing this on your own, you tend to read conceptually. And we read conceptually naturally because that's how we're taught in school. And that kind of reading will not serve you on SAT reading, that you need different tools to succeed. And I always refer to these as, quote, test prep cues and SAT cues. A cue is sort of like a red flag. It's like a signal. It's a kind of prompt. I can introduce, there's a long list. We're not going to get through every single one tonight, but I can call out some. And so one classic cue for SAT reading is a quantity cue. Another classic cue for SAT reading is a time cue. You guys absolutely have to be annotating your exam for time cues, quantity cues, comparison-based cues, sameness and difference, like that, which you get in words ending in ER, higher, lower, lighter, darker. This is the kind of stuff that I want you to train your mind on like a hawk, because this is the way they build the questions. It's the kind of the key that unlocks the question type. Let me show you guys this. Oh, somebody's got a question. Let's see. That's always welcome. Yeah, what do I mean when most people read stories? Yeah, kids, but all of us, I do too. When I say we read any content conceptually, for instance, the concepts in this Karl Marx passage are about revolution and about what causes revolutions, political revolutions, ideological revolutions. So the concept is about political upheaval, political strife. You guys don't need to be coached into that. What you do need to really be coached into is this. 40A again. Let's stay here and dwell on it. You need to be coached into this. LY ending words. If we look right here in 40D, I did not plan this and I didn't need to plan it. I once sat with one of my students who was saying, oh, and there's maliciously. They were like, oh, John, there aren't that many OY ending words. And I was like, now we're going to sit for the rest of class and annotate this exam. There were like 30 LY ending words in one batch of 52 questions. The LY ending word is a critical cue. It's not necessarily connected to the concept of political upheaval and political strife. It is a critical thing to notice because the LY ending words, they typically push an answer in a certain risky direction. For example, D. Describe individuals who were initially contributors to revolutions, but maliciously sabotaged them. Initially is a time cue. I just mentioned that to you guys. It's about the beginning, at first, earlier in time. When I see an answer like D, this is automatically what I start to think, and what I would want you guys to think is it's probably a trap because the contributors were ultimately sabotaging, but not at first. So as soon as they layer initialing onto that language, it restricts the answer in a time-based way that makes it very specific and very risky. I can give you guys another example of this, a time cue. I'm going to draw a little XY plot for everybody right here near 39. Let's draw a sloppy little graph. I'm going to draw, forgive me my bad drawing. Let's go here with this line. And let's go here like this. So there were two population density lines, and 90% of my students in my one-on-ones get this wrong, and in my group classes too. It's always a problem. And the question goes like this: when did the population curves begin to diverge? And everybody picks the answer where the divergence is at the highest magnitude, over here. They said, where do they literally begin to diverge? That is way over here at the beginning, where the magnitude of divergence is minute. And so people A, don't notice how important that time cue is about when did it begin. And they also feel uncomfortable because the concept is divergence. And so the mind naturally goes toward the highest magnitude of divergence. Isn't that strange how that works? So that's an example of you guys will automatically read conceptually in that case for divergence, and you understand that concept on an XY plot, but you miss the cue began. And so they depend on you guys missing these cues. And so it's so important that we hone in on them, really, really get a good look at them. Let's hop over to the slides now. I really wanted to cover we got a few cues down on the table that are really important, and also the hardest thing ever, which is the 0-1 in between logic that haunts people. Let's hop over here to the slides. Cruise over to the screen. I wanted to start into this particular strategy for you guys tonight too, of accepting the imperfect correct answer. One of the most important frameworks for you guys as you work through SAT is the test is not about the truth, and that you cannot be in a mindset where you are looking for true answers. You're going to really hobble yourself if you're in that frame of mind. It's important to accept the fact that this test is its own game, and that you have to play the game the way the test writers are writing the game. You can't approach the game in your own fashion and in your own particular way that you think it ought to be played. So you kind of have to acquiesce to the way they play this. This is a slide that really shows how deep the game is with them. I can give you guys quick context for this passage. It's really a simple passage conceptually. It's an Edgar Allan Poe passage, who I love, a great author, and it's about two guys who become friends. The narrator meets this dude named Dupin, and they sort of pal around Paris, and they become friends. I want you to read question 3. I'll read it for you. The narrator uses the phrase, whenever mere self is his theme, in line 20 to refer to what? And read through the yellow highlighting and the marks on the question, I think you should ignore. Don't think that those indicate rightness or wrongness the way I've marked. And then shoot me in the Zoom chat. What do you think? What do you think the answer is to 3? Let's get some responses. What do we think here? It's a tough question. That's why we're talking about it. Let me do a quick pause and see what you guys are saying. It worked. For everyone who answered, we're over half wrong. The trap is working. And I also think too that my annotations, it looked like almost no one was picking C or D because you guys aren't trusting me when I said don't pay attention to the way A and B are circled. I'll tell you this, if not for a quantity Q and D dog is actually the most appropriate answer, but it's incorrect because types, and that's a quantity Q. Not all quantity Qs have an S on the end. Some of them do. There's only one group of people, and that's the French. So we are only talking about French people, so there's no types, no plural. That's the best. Besides, it is incorrect. The correct answer is A, but D is I think the fairest answer, but it's technically incorrect. And so I always look for, when I see those quantity Qs, I would be out of D, lickety split, like in a flash. Someone actually said in the Zoom chat, thank you for your participation. I appreciate it. Somebody said they made a conceptual chess move. And I want to read this to you guys. It was a really thoughtful idea. And this is why you guys get punished for reading conceptually, because candor means truthfulness. Yeah. And so that's the idea that I feel like that thinking through that, vocab and that meaning is helping trap us a bit. And the humility, let's read B together. The humility that can result from frequently discussing oneself. The problem with this utterance in the yellow highlighting is that Edgar Allan Poe was mocking and making fun of the French who he hated. And so that's what's happening here. B reads this literally and reads it as if there were no sarcasm, and there is. This is drenched in sarcasm. And so Poe is making a joke here. The test writers are in on the joke. They understand this, and that's why they wrote answer B, because it's actually the opposite of the truth. Poe mocks the French because they're braggarts. They can't be truthful when they discuss themselves. They aren't humble. They're arrogant. And so they know what the joke is. They know Poe is winking at his audience. So the test writers wink along and write something that's the opposite of the truth. But do they give you the truth? Of course not. Then they give you A, C, and D. A is the correct answer. And as you guys would say, or as my college kids would say, A is a trash answer. A situation that is of special interest to people of a certain nationality. I'm going to read this again. A situation that is of special interest to people of a certain nationality. That is persistently and incredibly vague. And what you guys will see on SAT reading is often the technically correct answer is only technically correct because the other answers are technically wrong. And the one answer left standing, like A, offers you almost nothing about the passage. If we said this, I gave you guys a context for what this passage even is. If we said that answer and read it to somebody and said, what's this passage about? They would have literally no idea. The word situation, no nationality, and just interest, you have no clue what is even going on in the passage. The test writers know that your brain is literally biased for specificity. They know this. And so you guys lean away from non-specific answers like A. I want you guys to start leaning in. And that's how you become a master at SAT, is that you are no longer the puppet of how they're trying to manipulate you, and they are manipulating you. That's something I really want you guys to take away from tonight as well, is that the SAT is not testing your IQ, it's not testing your intelligence, and I think it's important for you guys to remember that it's testing a subset of skills that you need to work on, and that you need to separate that from your ego and from your sense of your own intelligence, because this is ridiculous. 3A is not an intelligent answer by any means. Let me pause and look at the chat. I think somebody had a contribution. That is a very great question. Thank you for asking that. How do we catch sarcasm in old literature? And you know what? It's not just fiction. There is an infamous pair passage from 19th century, 1850s, I think, or maybe 60s, by Thoreau, that's dripping in sarcasm, and my students miss it, and they implode on that passage. And I can give you guys a tangible, practical guide to understanding how to detect sarcasm. Sarcasm is rooted in exaggeration. Like the comedy and the comic nature of sarcasm always starts in exaggeration and in hyperbole. And so notice with all that and the word choice indulges. It's a hyperbolic word choice. You indulge in a piece of cake, not in candor. And so all that candor, meaning like all the candor in the world. And so it's hyperbolic. And that's how you start to detect sarcasm, is through hyperbole and through exaggeration. In the Thoreau passage that is about railway companies and how they lack a moral compass and they were killing people when they were building railroads in the United States, he talks about the juries in America are the most brilliant, it's the most brilliant jury system in the world has ever seen. And so he's literally using that kind of bombastic language. And that is what is driving the sarcasm, is that not only does he not think it's the best jury system in the world, he probably thinks it's one of the worst. And so he exaggerates. Let's pivot. This first strategy over here, accepting the imperfect correct answer, this is very sadly, this is not just the only strategy and the only thing we need to consider. A question like the number 3 right here, they're all mostly wrong. And when you guys experience this type of question, you freeze in your tracks, right? When there's no truthful answer, you are stuck. And these actually do cause you guys to have a kind of mini crisis where it rattles you and it physically gets you off balance. And then this is what, in their infinite evil genius, this is what they pair right after it. So it's not just how they build a question, they build the entire exam to be an emotional experience. They depend on your nerves. And then here in 4 and 5, they're like comforting you, they're soothing you by giving you a question that seems brutally simple and way too easy. So what happens is that you guys correct too quickly and then you make another mistake. Let's look at 4 and 5. This is the mostly right. So the previous one is mostly wrong. Now we've got mostly right. These seem easier, but they're not. And so you have to learn to distrust your own sense of how difficult any question or part of the exam is. The passage indicates that the narrator was most strongly drawn to Dupin because he was what? The only answer you can take away, I don't know if you guys can see that, it says lucky to make a wealthy acquaintance. The first paragraph points out in no indisputable terms that Dupin is now broke. His family was wealthy, but he squandered all his money away. And so he is definitely not wealthy anymore. That one we can wipe off the map. A, B, and C, they're all essentially true. And this is an evidence-based question. So let's work through this. The first one, and this is also not accidental, they actually make the A answer the same line, and they give you the evidence lines for 5, 18 to 20. I was deeply interested in the little family history. That's what we just covered in 3. And I would say all of us, I'm not using this as a characterization, but there is such a thing as lazy test taking, and this is where they will punish you for that, where the material you're most comfortable with is what you just saw. And so once you see how accurate those lines are, that he is interested in Dupin's life and lineage, that's exactly what that says. I was deeply interested in his little family history. You're going to pick this, or tons of people do. In fact, I also want you guys to notice interested is duplicated as a word choice. Interested, 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 interested in the answer in the passage. They're doing that to give you that false sense of, quote, connection. And they will purposefully duplicate word choices, and it's like a snare. It ensnares you guys. So notice that. Seems perfect, right? C. What about C? He's amazed they have the same interests. Look at these lines. This is exactly what he's saying. They don't say amazed, but he says it's remarkable that the same interests they're talking about is their reading habits. The volume is the book, and he's in the library, and the meeting is at the library, and he is amazed by that. He thinks it's remarkable, and he's like, this is what is making us friends. So he is amazed that they have the same interests. This is accurate. It is the truth. Quite unlike the last one, where nothing was the truth. So A and C sounded perfect. Interest, remarkable, amazing, right on point. What about B? Excited by the nature of Dupin's virtues. Let's take a poll. When you guys hear the word virtue in the Zoom chat, what's the first thing you think of? Just word association game. Virtue is what? When I say virtue, you think what? Look at this, look at this, look at this. This is why I love the big group. Moral values, morals, values, patience. It's all morality. Of course it is. That's what the word is, the association of the word virtue. That's part of the denotation definition. But look at what they did. the line is not about virtues or morality at all. It has nothing to do with that. It's about imagination. Imagination, if they changed B to this, excited by the nature of Dupin's creativity, and then the line is about his fresh imagination, then B would sound as good as A and C really do sound. And so right now, what the test writers did is that they purposefully tweaked a word choice to make it adjacent, and virtue can just be a trait of any kind. That's like its secondary or tertiary definition. And so, yes, legally and technically they can call it that because if you open a dictionary, it literally says that, but that's not what you associate with. And so, as an answer, B stinks. Like I always use the metaphor of smell. Like it's like a bad cologne, and it doesn't smell good. Like I feel like that misfit with the word is an issue. And of course, B is correct. B is the right answer. And so they did this on purpose. It was well done. Like hats off to them. Um, does anyone know why? Can anyone see it? There is a cue. When I was priming you guys on cues earlier, there is a test prep cue that is staring us in the face. And I don't know if you guys can see it yet because it's really hard to pick up on these, to be frank. This isn't something you learn in a night. It's a habit of mind and a habit of thinking and practice. Does anyone see it? I rattled it off in the list. Quantity cues, time cues, da 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 da. You would never see it. Check this out. That's it. Most and above all. The question says the narrator was most strongly drawn to Dupin, and it says above all. The petty level is through the roof. This is ridiculous. It truly is. It's ridiculous, but it's also predictable. And the most is a superlative language cue. That goes with quantity cues, that goes with time cues, that goes with same difference cues. If you are not prepped on this and coached or figure this out on your own, normal people who are even great readers, they're not going to notice stuff like this. They just won't. It's not normal. It's not natural. So this is why this kind of coaching is critical for your success. We can't walk into this blind. Let's recap this. What they've done to you guys here, 3, 4, and 5. Fiction is usually the sweet spot for most of you, where people perform well on fiction because we read more fiction in school. It's like a safe zone, and they having 3 wrong on fiction is a problem, and that's setting you up to do very poorly on this exam. It's like I think of it like boxing. What happened with those 3 questions? It's like a right hook, and then you're weak, and then bam, it's like left like sucker punch, like right when you're thrown off balance. And this pattern is something that the test writers create. Mostly wrong, mostly right. You're stuck, you're fearful, you're having a crisis. The mostly right, it is like a fresh breeze coming in the window. You feel like you're centered again because you quote get it. And so this is very dangerous. Like that they are able to sort of so carefully manipulate the way that you're feeling at any given moment, like in an exam. It's almost fascinating, like the way that they're so successful at monitoring and creating this for us. Well, gosh, time flies when you're having fun. I really do love the SAT reading, and I feel like even though I know it's a pain for you guys, and I hope you guys can learn to lean into it too, and that there are not only are there real tools we can use to beat them at their game, but I think there's long-lasting merit to this too. So you will not only get the score you want, but it's a great learning process and learning curve. The last thing I wanted to teach you, and I don't know this for a fact because the curtain is pulled at the College Board, so you don't get to know much, but I would guarantee that they have learning and memory experts who have really specific psych research like on board and on the team, because you can see they often build questions around the primacy and recency effects. And even I just got my B in psychology with English, but and some of you might know this just from some of your psych classes in high school, that the primacy refers to the memory's ability to hold on to things at the beginning, and recency is something that holds on to at the end of anything. It could be a list, it could be a passage. And so like on 21, I just wanted to show you guys that the correct answer is C. And they literally built this whole question around the extremes, the beginning and the ending. And that is the blue is the beginning, so that is the primacy, and then the yellow would be the recency effect answer. What's going to happen is that people will say, oh, I don't know, my gut. B felt like the right answer. That was my gut feeling. And I always tell people, like, I joke that your stomach is not part of the test. Your gut is your memory function, and they know your memory better than you do. And so this is why they use actual physiological processes against you, that the memory is sort of setting you up to make a kind of mistake. And so, but this stuff is discernible. There's a big difference too from taking exams and practicing tests to studying, dissecting, deconstructing, and reconstructing the answers and the questions. It's really important. Let's hit pause. Let's say at 6:41, I think we were gonna do the lottery, the raffle for the mock test. Oh, there he is.
Hello, John.
Hey, bud. Hey.
Yeah, it was great. And we're going to take a short break right now to announce our winner.
Awesome.
Let's see. We're going to do this live for you guys. So, okay. We've got everybody who's registered here, and we're going to use an Excel function just to do a random count and see what number pops up, and we'll see the name.
I like this. I like the live aspect.
Oh, wait, sorry. Equal sign. 58. So let's see. Who is lucky number 58? Christina Mann. So, Christina Mann, can you please send into the chat box your email address? And we will take care of it from there. But if you don't respond, then we're going to do another drawing. Christina, are you there?
I think the chat, maybe not.
Let's see. All right, let's do another one then. Okay. Ready? Number 36. Who is number 36? Gary Chen. Gary Chen, are you here? Gary, go ahead and send your email address to the panelists, and
everybody's asleep.
Gary, you're not there? Ooh. Okay, Gary. That's okay. All right, I guess it's 85.
Did we switch from chance to merit?
Sydney, no. Are you here? Sydney? I think you're here, aren't you? Just go into the chat box and send your email address to the panelists, and we'll take care of it. But so far, we haven't gotten any messages from our winners. No?
Funny.
All right, well, okay, we'll do one more after the Q&A then. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Well, friends, so questions. Flood the box with any questions. I think we have one that for central clean questions, aren't you supposed to look at the beginning and the end? Yes. But this is the problem. And I actually had a very comical moment with one of my students a long time ago, like I think it was a year and a half ago. Her dad kind of popped into the camera during the session, and he said, "Tell her the rule." Like, and he seemed a little frustrated, and he kept using the word rule. And I was explaining to him, I was like, if there were rules that were always the case on SAT, everyone would have a perfect score. And I said, what you have to do is create habits of mind of how you notice and adjudicate answers. You can never say, this is the rule. It just does not work. You can't do it. And so, yeah, you do need to skim beginnings and endings, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are weak to only that material, and that there's a different way to adjudicate those 4 answers that were on that slide through things like cues and signals, that you don't just use that kind of conceptual front-loaded and back-ended material. Yeah. What else? What's another question? Any other questions, thoughts? I know I was moving at a quick clip tonight but I think it's important to prime you guys with a lot of good information. And the cue info is gold. Like you can take those cues, even the simple ones like time and quantity, you can go a very long way with time and quantity. I can show you guys really quick if anyone wants to formulate another thought. This is a Karl Marx passage. You would think this has nothing to do with quantity cues. Look at 35. Look at A. This is the correct answer. Few. Few is a quantity. If you go back up, few agitators. And the reason that happens, and the reason that you can depend on that kind of duplication of quantity cues, and that they're like a guiding light in the darkness, is the College Board has got to protect themselves legally. They could be sued into oblivion if someone could prove that the test is inherently subjective. I can tell you guys, it is not. Like anyone who insists on that, they haven't studied long enough and they haven't figured this out. That there are so many just nitty gritty technicalities baked into and buried in the exam. It really protects the College Board as an organization. That if I always joke with my people in my classes, if they were in the courtroom, they would say, Your Honor, 35A says few, and then they would circle few, and it was an evidence-based pair, and that would be it, case closed. And so it's important to understand why they have to cling to certain things, and they do and they must. How should you practice? That is a very big question. Like I would say start with depending on when your test date is, my practice strategies vary, like for how much time you've got. If you have a long time, I would say start organizing by question type. I would say start building your vocab. And I would also say that logic presentation that I was doing tonight, try to start seeing that 0-1 in between logic. So cues, logic, building vocab, and then analyzing question types and developing techniques and strategies for question types. Those are the 3 broad-based approaches. Listen to Alden had a great question about complex passages associated with physics and biology. How do we get a better understanding? You may not be able to get a better understanding. It might be impossible for you. That doesn't mean that you can't get the questions right. A lot of the physics and harder science passages, they're designed to resist quick comprehension and they resist visualization. So they will give you guys, let's say we're talking about a virus and, not like there's a tumor virus passage I love using in class. And they're analyzing how tumors and viruses are the same and different. And you really cannot figure all of it out in one sitting. But what you absolutely can do is adjudicate answers carefully using signals and cues, and you can save yourself even on material that you don't quite grasp. And that's like the Marx passage. You would never understand that whole, I wouldn't have, I don't think, at your age. And so it's not about understanding it all. It's about knowing what to look for and how to navigate. Yeah, like for instance, for the cues, like that few, can you explain how identifying them will help? It will help because let's go back to that screen. You can compare the few cue with a non-specific cue, and then you do what I call vertical read. So you can actually see, this is another comment from tonight that I want you guys to really take away from class. Look at how messy this test is after I work through it. Your tests have to look like this. If you are not marking aggressively on your exam, you are not taking the test the way it has to be taken. If someone took my mark away from me, I couldn't, if I was printing and didn't have a pencil, and if I was not able to mark on a screen, that always made me a very strong test taker, and this would reduce my efficiency. I would probably still get you know, hopefully the same result, but the efficiency would be totally compromised. Few people, look at D. I'm going to vertically read in real time for us. Let's go over here. Someone is vague. Few is a technical number. It's 3. And so the College Board, couple, few, several, 2, 3, 4. So that's how this helps you decide. It's helping you figure out what you're looking for in your evidence lines in 36. Even if this wasn't evidence-based pair, it changes what you look for when you go back to skim. And so the cues are also about skim selection, that you can't just start skimming at the beginning, you'll never finish the test. And so it's a skimming technique. And it's also a logic technique too, especially some of the time cues in particular. Great question. What else? You can do a ton in 2 months. 2 months is a great amount of time. You're gonna have to hustle depending on what your score goal is, but you can make good strides in 60 days. Yeah, well, okay, oh good, we've got 9 minutes. Excellent. We'll do another raffle in 9 minutes. Who else has a question? Let's look at some more cues. If you guys don't have a question, I'm gonna go back and we're gonna do some more close reading. We should do another nearly means. This is, yeah, let's do 39. This is an important thing for you guys to take away from tonight. It's used in line 64, light most nearly means. 90% of people get 39 wrong. It's a brutal nearly means question. So just to emphasize, we're looking at light in line 64. Let me clean this up. Just as a funny anecdote, when you see the way I'm annotating both the passage and the answers, I was with one of my students once and I sent them, I was just, you know, we're always kicking all these documents around, and I sent them a test, one of mine, that I had already marked up, and I thought I had sent them the clean copy. We sit, they go through the test, and they got a perfect score on a really hard passage. And I asked them one very specific question, and I said, how would you most efficiently explain why D is correct in comparison to C? And it was like on a particular one, and they answered so quickly. And I was like, I said, how did you know that? And he was a funny guy, and he said, because John, it's marked. I was like, oh, like I sent you the annotated exam, and the marking created his perfection. And so like it's literally like a map that shows you how to decide. It's like saying, giving someone street directions and saying, oh, well, you got to turn left here, go right here, make a U-turn there. That's exactly what all this mess truly is, and it works. So let's look at light. I mentioned this already tonight, and look how it's not that I'm psychic, it's just that they are consistent. I said nearly means they will often give you a very long sentence that's designed to confuse. All these petty personal quarrels and recriminations, all these contradictory assertions that it was Marat, Ledru-Rollin, or Louis Blanc, or any member of the provisional government, or the whole of them, that steered the revolution amidst the rocks upon which it foundered. Of what interest can they be? What light can they afford to the American or Englishman who observed all these various movements from a distance too great to allow of his distinguishing any of details or operations? I'm out of breath. Like I literally, that was taxing. This is ridiculous. The first thing I want you guys to think when you get a sentence like this in a nearly means is map grammar and simplify. And not only that, this is our new technique that does not just go with nearly means, goes with any question type. And the technique is this. See this? I want you guys to lean in and burn this into your cerebral cortex. They are purposefully asking in about light here next to ambiguous pronouns. And this is also completely predictable. They ask about words by ambiguous pronouns because you guys will not track back who is the they. Everybody assumes it's this list of people. It is not. This is grammatical M dash removal. You do not consider this when you're tracking back pronouns and subjects and verbs. From a grammatical standpoint, it is quarrels and recriminations. It's the subject of the verb. And that is the antecedent for they. If you understand that the subject is the quarrels and recriminations, what light can those recriminations afford? This is how now you know that a recrimination is inanimate. It cannot be advice. And if you read that sentence slowly on your own, the trap answer is advice because it seems like learning. The American and the Englishman are trying to learn something from the examples of other revolutions. Everybody picks advice. And as soon as I always say, a recrimination or a quarrel cannot offer advice. Advice is offered, it's a human agency word. And so you cannot choose D because a person is not the agent of it. It is C, context. And so those quarrels and recriminations offer no context to someone who is living far afield in some other corner of the world. Takeaway, always note on nearly means. Is your subject human, animal, mineral? The mineral is kind of a joke, but human, animal, inanimate. You have to do that every single time. They tinker with this in a kind of fascinating way. I can give you and narrate a parallel example here with 3 minutes left. There's a bird passage. They love the animal passages, right? And they're talking about a bird building a nest. And the word they ask about is fashions. And the bird fashions blank. And everyone picks designs, like 98% of people. The bird fashions his nest. The bird designs his nest. Sounds totally normal. Like I said earlier, one of my colleagues who they're some geniuses, and I feel like I could see them picking designs. It flows perfectly, the meaning is fine, but the College Board has really nitty-gritty logic. And, to be honest, they're petty but correct. The bird cannot design a nest because design implies forethought. Animals work and behave automatically. They do not sit on Monday and say, I'm going to design my nest on Friday. So it's like the design is a kind of cognitive operation that only humans do. So you remove design from the list because it's human specific. It's only appropriate for a human to design. I have two enormous German shepherds that you guys can't see. They're both like 120 pounds and they can't design anything. They behave and they're smart and they can do things, but they can't design in advance. The correct answer, oddly enough, on that is mix. We're wrapping up. Excellent. Okay, so 650. Yeah. Awesome. We're going to do the raffle again.
Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate it for sure. Good luck with your studying. All the best. Hang in there.
Yep. And we're going to do this raffle one last time. And if the winner is not here, we're going to announce it afterwards. So we're going to use it. We're going to just pick it among everyone who's here right now. We can't do that until after the event. But here we go. One last go. Sorry. Number 62. Let's see who this is. Maggie Wu. Maggie Wu, are you here? If you're here, send a message to our panelists with your email address. And if you're not, then we will email the winner. Thank you all for joining our class today. And make sure you check out all of our test prep courses coming up. We also have a new Facebook group for K-8 students. And make sure you give us a like on our Instagram and our Facebook page. We're always posting cool updates. And our YouTube page will also always have recordings of our best open classes and a lot of resources for you guys to use to prepare for the SAT. I hope you guys enjoyed Dr. Neiman's presentation tonight, and thank you for coming. Maggie, are you not here? Then, yeah, we'll see who the winner is. Thank you for coming.